In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Christ is in our midst.
He is in our shadow.
I want to apologize ahead of time. I was reading something the other week and had a small revelation in my mind. Whether it was from God or not, I don't know. But you know, in the Fathers, they talk about the bees, how the bees go from flower to flower, and they collect the nectar of the flower, and how we're to live like bees, to get the sweet things. To whatever, as we bounce around our life, we land and we take up the nectar of life, the good things, and discard the rest. But it came to me that, and this is often contrasted with a fly. You know, the flies, they don't see the flowers, they go directly to the dung. But then it occurred to me, because I've always felt bad because I'm more of a fly than a bee, it occurred to me that flies serve a purpose, that they help in the death and decay of things. And anyways, it gives me permission to be myself, right? So I apologize ahead of time. This may be a little bit negative, maybe a little bit fly-like, but maybe you need it. Maybe something here needs to die. Today we encounter the Publican and the Pharisee, and we know that this is the beginning of our march towards Great Lent. We're in the Lenten Triodion. And it behooves us to contemplate both the Publican and the Pharisees, their life, how they prayed, what justified them. And the negative part I want to focus on is just our culture. I want to say that I remember being at Disney World and seeing a slogan, which I can't remember, but you've heard the slogans within our culture, such as, if you just think of it, you can do anything you want. If you just put your mind to it, you can become anything you want. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. You might have been told, and you might tell your kids that they are special, that they are unique, uniquely talented and gifted and precious, and they're not really that unique. They're not that precious or talented. You may have lived in the culture where everything is about feeling good about yourself, where you should have a sense of accomplishment, meaning in life, like you're moving in a positive direction. But why would you feel good about yourself? I mean, really, why should you feel good? Why should I feel good about myself? Our culture focuses on building self-esteem. But why should any of us have self-esteem? You see, we swim like fish in a water of a culture which is steeped in positive psychology. Everything's good. I'm blessed. Your kids are great. Give them a trophy. Everybody's wonderful. And all the good feelings that are supposed to build us up, build a sense of self-empowerment. Don't you want to be empowered? But what do you have to be empowered about? Have you ever been given permission to feel bad about yourself? Have you ever been given permission to look at yourself self-critically and honestly? To not only see the icing and the cherry on top, those few positive things we have about ourselves, but also to see the deeply broken aspects, the repeated sins, brokenness, and ugliness that exists in each one of us and exists everywhere. Now, culturally, again, we don't want to harp on those negativities, those negative things about ourselves. But in truth, it is actually the most present thing that in our culture. You want to be proud to be an American? Have you seen the citizens America produces? Have you seen what we export to other countries? Have you watched MTV? I mean, come on. Have you seen anything within our culture? Are we supposed to be proud? Well, certainly, maybe there's a healthy bit of sense of our freedoms and those sort of things. But it might be better as a culture, because we're so steeped in this type of positivity, to be more Christian about it and to examine ourselves. I apologize because this all sounds negative, but in fact, it's just the way of the Christian faith. Not, again, to meaninglessly tear down people and make them feel worthless, but to give us an eye to see ourselves so we're not intoxicated by the waters that we swim in day by day. Because what we see day by day, be all that you can be, you are the future, whatever it is, the slogan at Disney. My daughter could tell me what it was, I forgot. It felt like indoctrination when we were there. It was like this big thing they frosted, It's like, that's not true. That's not true. I think it's like anything or say anyways. I won't even try. You see, today we have someone who believed their own propaganda, who went up and prayed at the temple. They believed they were great. They did all the right things. They were nationally proud of his nationality, proud of his status, proud of everything about himself. And it says he went up and prayed with himself. God didn't hear his prayer. He wasn't praying to God. He was praying with himself. He was talking to himself about how great he was. And he was a little bit thankful that he was greater than the guy over there who was suffering in his sins. Then we hear the story of the publican, someone who is deeply aware of his brokenness. Now, we don't know if the publican is healed after his prayer. We don't know if the publican goes on to do and, extort people. The publicans were some of the most hated people in the empire. We mentioned this last week. Zacchaeus was a publican, a tax collector, and these people were not liked. But for that moment, the publican was telling the truth about himself. There was no propaganda about how great things were, about how good it was, about how he once did one thing good in his life. Everything was centered on the pain of his heart and that focal reality that in the end, he needed mercy from God. And I would say that, and Jesus says that he goes away because of this central focus, because of this pain of heart. He goes away justified. And I guess we're assumed that he is also healed, and we may assume that he goes on not to sin anymore. So let's think about this in our own spiritual lives. So much emphasis in our culture on feeling good, about self-esteem, about positive body image, about whatever it may be, positive whatever image. We live in a society that wants to have a propaganda about each and every one of us, who invisibly tears us down with emptiness, because the society does tear us down, but builds us up with this surface kind of garbage. The same garbage that the Pharisee was spouting at the altar is what is what society thinks Christians are supposed to do. That we would walk around and say, God forbid we ever say, thank God I'm not like these other people. Or thank God I'm not broken like all these, or thank God I'm in the correct faith and not like these Protestants over here, or these whoever's. As Orthodox Christians, we are meant to be eminently humble, and humility comes through brokenheartedness. And the example in today's gospel is of a humble and brokenhearted man crying out to God and asking for mercy. This is where healing takes place. This is where justification takes place. And this is where the rubber hits the road in our Christian life. So may God give us the heart of the publican. Let's not have propaganda about ourselves. Let's not have an illusion about ourselves or our country, but rather lead repentant lives, deeply humble lives. May God bless it to be so in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Christ is in our midst.